right, Anna, Jose, great to be with you. How are you both doing?
We're great. We're great, Steve.
Yeah, we're surviving this Sydney heat wave, and very soon the next destination is Perth, Tasmania, Sydney, Hawaii. So they're the next.
We're super excited to welcome you into Perth. The community is very excited, and I'm excited as well to practice with you both.
Yeah, well, this will be our third trip to Perth, and
we love Perth. We love the water there. We've made beautiful connections with the people, but also with the lightning and the thunder and the storms there. We've had just such magic whenever we go to Perth. So it's exciting to be going again. Like, what's going to happen?
Yeah, and we have the Aboriginal elder Violet. Nana. She'll be doing Welcome to Country there on Friday. She was there last time we came to Perth, and she's just an amazing woman. So, you know, we'll be bringing a little bit of Aboriginal culture. We've got didgeridoos, and so it's going to be a very spectacular opening night.
Wonderful. Now, Jose, you've got quite a strong connection with the Aboriginal community in Australia. Am I correct?
That's correct. About 25 years ago, I begun an Aboriginal dance company here called Descendance Aboriginal. And I did it with the late, great songwoman, Imelda Willis, who was from the Idingi and Kanju tribes. So we put together a group in Sydney as sort of like one mob, all with a common cause. Because we couldn't have all Udingi and Kanju members here in Sydney, we opened it up to all tribes, all nations coming under the banner of Descendance. And, you know, we started off with no money, absolutely nothing. It ended up going to over 40 countries. And in 2004, we won World's Best Indigenous Group at the United Nations World Culture Open. So it's just been like a dream come true, starting with nothing, traveling the four corners of the world and doing the world's biggest events. And even to this day in Forrest Yoga, we still keep the Aboriginal connection. And whenever we're in Sydney, Descendance is part of this organisation. So we have a big affiliation with First Nations people here in Australia. In Canada, we have some natives, people there. In America, we have native people, and we try to connect with the Indigenous people of every land we go to and include them in the ceremonies.
That's so beautiful. We do the same thing. So I really appreciate that. It's a beautiful thing to do. And I'd just love to know, Anna, how did that come into your life to begin with? I know a bit about your background, and I can personally relate to it a lot as well. I know you were working with animals and you were doing a lot of drugs and alcohol, and I was as well. I wasn't working with that many animals, but I was doing a lot of drugs. And it was fierce, it was intense, it was shit. At the same time, it was a huge awakener that brought me to yoga. I'd just love to know a little bit about your journey and how that kind of more abusive domain in your teenagehood, yet the therapeutics you were finding with animals, and then how that segued into yoga and then this more shamanic, tribal part of yoga. Could you just speak to that whole journey? That could take a while in itself, but go there.
I did write a book about it.
Yeah. Well, get the book, listeners.
Fierce.
Yeah.
You know, my life was extremely painful, and there was a lot of pain in my body. There's a lot of mental and emotional anguish, and the place that I would get some ease and where feel some alignment was when I was in nature or with animals. But my craziness and my violence was so intense that frequently I would turn on the animals. Like if they bit or kicked, I would go ballistic. Mm-hmm. And so my own shame about how when I'd go crazy would come up too. So it would taint that relationship also. And it took a long time to clean that out. to clean out my violent response to pain.
Yeah.
And in around 1973 or 74 in there, I tried to jump off a cliff. I did jump off a cliff to suicide. And when I didn't die, then I made a decision to put as much effort into living. And it became my internal mantra of choose life. And so every time I would think about, choosing alcohol, it's like, no, choose life. Because even as fucked up as I was then, I knew that the alcohol and drugs was a death road. It wasn't like about getting high. It was about getting numb.
Yeah.
And dying. And so just that was a big guide for a long time. And in 1975, I stopped the drugs and the alcohol, went vegetarian, stopped smoking, and took my first teacher training course. And it was a residential in Mexico, so I was being fed every day vegetarian food because I didn't know how to feed myself. I didn't know how to care for myself. I could care for any animal that came to me. I could figure out what they needed food-wise and exercise and all this stuff, but I couldn't apply it to me. I couldn't care. So I started learning there how to eat. And then studied yoga and taught for years and years, and yet still, having a lot of trouble inside, and found my way into the Native American ways. And that started giving me a place to get centered. And that's actually where I first connected to my spirit consciously. So then for a long time, I had these two separate lives, the medicine life and the yoga life.
So was that like plant medicine, or was that like sweat lodges? Was it drumming? What?
Pipe ceremony, vision, sun dance.
Yeah.
I tried the ayahuasca and the peyote, and I was very anti-drug. And it's like, okay, be respectful here. You're using them in a medicine way. But the basic message, even though I have really fine people guiding me through all that, was this is not my road. And it's like, great, done. This is not my road. Medicine's my road, but not this. So no, that's not my way.
Yeah.
And so or like how to have guidance on that. I'm the wrong person when it comes to or peyote or any of the psychotropics. It's like I'm heavily against that. My body despises those things.
Well, especially when you're coming out of substance abuse and you're looking for living. I can totally understand the aversion to that for sure.
Yeah. So I started learning about maybe 6-7 years ago. I started learning how to work with music in a really strange way, and it was my big secret. And like I started doing brummery when I was working on healing people and buzzing into wherever the congestion, the clot, or the cancer, whatever it was, or singing my medicine song to them, and it was very secretive. And when I first met José, and we were telling each other our secrets as part of our courtship, and I had to tell him because this was this deep, not dark, but very tender secret of what I was discovering in the healing process. And so I explained that I was using music and brummery to get into the disordered part on my people. And he said, oh, my people have been singing into the bones for 40,000 years. And I was just like, I was stunned. It was like, wow, okay, man, we need to talk about this. And I totally want to learn from something that's been running such a deep river for 40,000 years instead of having to paw my own pathway on it when the pathway is already established.
So music is a very big ingredient of Forrest Yoga now, and all Aboriginal healing techniques and philosophies have been introduced into the curriculum.
True, José.
So when I met Anna, I came in as, firstly, the ceremonial leader, and secondly, as the business mentor. So I took over the management of the business and also the ceremonial part. And the first thing I did was included veganism, shamanism, Aboriginality, live music, and I brought all these new things into Forrest Yoga, making it a complete experience. And my years as an artistic director, because I'd been in the yoga business for a long, long time, and it's a very disorganized and unprofessional musically, to say the least. You know, people playing drums and doing whatever, singing like chickens with their heads cut off. Having with Descendants at the Olympic Games, world's biggest festivals, doing ceremonies, even a ceremony for Anna Forrest, I learned to craft professional presentations of ceremonies, because with Descendants, we would see the ceremonies of, you know, Jamaicans, Africans, Indians. So I got to learn firsthand how to stage a ceremony musically and professionally without boring people to tears.
Right.
So this is what I bring to Forrest Yoga, and the vegan principle was one of the main things, being a vegan speaker myself for 30 years. It was wonderful, and Anna may tell you, we met in a lift at Body Mind Life Yoga Centre in Sydney 5 years ago, and the rest is history. Now everything that I've achieved in my life with Descendants, and we've toured over 40 countries, done the world's biggest events, everything I've learned as a medicine man, song man, everything, businessman, I bring to Anna's Forrest Yoga.
Wonderful.
And together, it's just been an awe-inspiring combination, match made in heaven.
Wonderful. So Joe and I offer a similar type of reverential, ceremonial type offering when we teach. And we often observe that there's resistance in that, especially when people have just practiced the more aerobic and body-focused, body-beautiful type of asana practice. And often they don't even realize this more musical and ceremonial part of yoga, and it can be confronting. I remember it being confronting for myself when I first experienced like ceremony, and in retrospect, I could see old conditioning from religious doctrines and just scar tissue from just being in churches and synagogues and just feeling the inauthenticity and the mechanical nature of ceremony. So I definitely had resistance. And I see that in others when they come into more of a ceremonial vibe. And can you speak to that a little bit about speaking to like Perth people that have just done a physical yoga practice and they don't know of any other more ceremonial or shamanic, but they're feeling a pulse to come, but they're like, holy crap, like it looks intense. Like, can you speak to that vantage point a bit?
Well, firstly, I've been tailor-making ceremonies for corporate, schools, universities, whatever. So I know how to craft a ceremony even for the most one-dimensional person. And I must say that yoga, like coming from an indigenous background and magic shamanic background that I have, I've got to admit that yoga, white middle-class yoga, is one-dimensional. It is totally one-dimensional, and white middle-class nothingness is at the center of yoga in general. You know, you got young people, 20, 21, doing teacher training courses. There's all sorts of nonsense going on in yoga. Anna and I give something real. And the setup is very, very easy. We have very easy entry points, even for the biggest skeptics or the biggest idiots in the room. And slowly we dismantle the armor by beginning softly with the flute and everyone closing their eyes. Then there'll be some sort of reading. We take the person out of the mental noise early in the piece, and then we will do an Aboriginal opening or something, and then just a quick Aboriginal storytelling or whatever. But you'll see for yourself, it's crafted in stages. And we only use it at the opening and then in Savasana, and maybe have a little bit of fun with it somewhere in the center. But we do a really physical yoga practice as well.
Oh, I know. I've taken Anna's class before. It's challenging. I mean, for the asana, for the crew out there that are craving a intense asana practice, I mean, it's that as well, right?
It's so many of our people that come to us and that you and I have both had is like we're spiritually bereft. Mm-hmm. And we can look to the drugs, we can look to sex, we can look to all kinds of crazy places to try to fill this hole that we don't want to even feel. But it's because we're not connecting to our spirit, we're not connecting to our alignment with nature, and it makes us sick. It makes the planet sick. It makes our relationship with animals insane. And so these are some of the things that we start bringing into alignment and correction is we get the yayas out with the poses, but also learn how to use the poses as this beautiful crafted tool to go into where you need the healing or where you need the breakthrough and the realizations. Because it's not only about healing, it's also about vision questing right there in the pose. Yeah. It's very exciting. It's like what I used to do on my own is amplified to such a degree now that we are working together, because it's not on me. We each have different magic that we weave together.
Wonderful. Jo was just talking before when she was practicing with you a lot, Anna, in the early 2000s. She had just come back from India, in which she was a devoted Ashtanga practitioner, but she kept getting injured. She had really chronic back injuries. So she started practicing with you a lot when you had your studio in Santa Monica. Yeah. And she really does swear that your practice healed her back. And she recalls it being very, very core orientated. Like she hadn't done any conscious core work before. It was just the Ashtanga practice of just jamming the body into deeper and deeper stretches, but there was nothing about stability or core awareness. She wanted to give a little shout out of appreciation for that real deep healing core work, which, can you speak to that a bit? Yeah, I know you guys bring a lot of attention to the core.
But we also bring a lot of attention, like in the back bends, for example. Most people injure themselves in back bends through compression and through leaving big bunches of muscles not working. For example, the butt muscles, which are so strong. And when you don't know how to use your ass, you end up putting pressure into your low back. Kind of simple. You got to learn how to use your ass. Yeah. And we teach how to get space between the joints so that the pressure is off the nerves and the discs through the spine and off of the hip joints and not grinding the cartilage and the bones. So with a lot of these yoga systems, there's no knowledge about that. And so the injuries are just revolting. And since Jo has worked with me, we've developed more abdominals. We've developed these beautiful, deep gut back bends that are therapeutic back bends, which just pulls open the back and releases the scar tissue and the knots and the psoas, and they're amazing. And yeah, she definitely should come on one of the back bend classes if she can.
Okay, cool. That would be her biggest challenge is back bend, so I'll recommend that for sure. Now, from the early 2000s to now, 2019, how have you observed the way you teach? How have you observed that evolve since then? Besides the back bend and the particularities to alignment, just the whole spectrum.
In 1993, I did a really crazy accident in a restaurant where my back was horribly injured. And I herniated a disc and ripped all the muscles in my back and my neck and some in the upper back. And as I kept trying to teach through that injury, I couldn't stand light in my eyes because it would make me throw up. So in a really bizarre way, some of my gifts that had not come fully surface had to blaze out. So I would teach laying on a sheepskin because my bones couldn't stand hard surfaces with my arm over my eyes, and I would say things like, Stu, you need to bring up your collarbones more because your upper trapezius are knotting up and they need to relax back.
Wow.
Yes. So I taught that way because I couldn't take daylight, and it didn't occur to me that it was, bordering past the web of weird, because I was using my other senses to teach from. And it freaked my people out for a while, but then they kind of enjoyed it too. So then the big changeover is with that excruciating pain and then having to develop the abdominals to bring my own health back. And yeah, I've just developed a lot of things since then. But one of the things that has changed so much is the way that we carry the medicine in the ceremony, because I was the sole carrier of it for so long. And what Jose brings in is, one, I'm not alone anymore in this teaching, which was just exhausting and soul wearying for me. I go into my own despair about that sometimes. It was just so much to do on this planet that needed help, and I was exhausting myself trying to get to it. And so together we are like a synergistic energy. It's like 2 + 2 = 50,000.
And the music,
magic math.
yeah, the music has just been such a big inclusion, the live music. And we're not talking about mantras and oms and shanties and all that stuff. We're talking about First Nations music, and then the original soundscapes that I've composed as well, because we've learned that music is the only form that can connect the 3 parts of the brain together. The audio, motor, and visual. So we use music strategically, a bit like the Aboriginal people, not to listen to, but as a form of medicine. So the physical, what we offer in our courses is the complete package when they leave. The physical yoga practice itself is just one element. We also teach about the veganism, also taking a course in the arts or singing or whatever. It's a complete, almost crafting a life of passion and purpose, because what I've learned from the world travels is people are so close to suicide. At most of the talking circles, we hear, and this is yogis, this is not, alcoholics and that on the street, this is yoga people. And when we reveal the secrets to one another, we learn that there's a very fine line between mental health and suicide. So what Anna and I, the physical yoga practice is not going to fix anything. If you want a good sweat, okay, if you want to feel a little bit better, limb it up, absolutely, that's a start. But there's also the spiritual, emotional, and mental stuff as well. So that's where I came in to come up with more medicines to make this a complete system, the way yoga used to be a system, not just a physical practice itself. So this is what we're creating, so people can help themselves, give themselves a sense of hope, and create a life of purpose and passion. Because a life without passion, we see what happens without the passion.
Very sad.
Very sad.
So you had talked about the resistance, and resistance to all kinds of things, and sometimes it's an intelligent resistance and sometimes it's not. So what I need to say to people who are listening to this is, like, whatever your religious beliefs or lack of beliefs are, it doesn't really matter to us. Whether you're a Christian or whether you're absolutely against anything with organized religion, I don't care. I'm going to start the ceremony in this workshop with doing a smoke blessing where we clear the electromagnetic field. And what we ask of each person is, put down your prejudices and your opinions and then find out what's really going on. Find out how much can you get out of this instead of pushing back against us like, I'm not going to let your work affect me. I'm going to be unfixable. It's like, don't waste your fucking time doing that. And jump on everything that we're giving you and make good use of it. And then in this one weekend, there will be a shift.
And I think what's also pretty common in this vast array of very young teachers, and the whole the secret movement and the positivity movement of I think often people feel they need to constantly be positive, and they need to constantly have this perfect image, especially with the whole Instagram, Insta yogi thing. And I mean, often with a practice like this, a masterful practice that is healing, truly healing, not just a quick little positive fix, but taking you. Yeah, but often people in the new age of yoga don't go that deep. The metaphor is often the yogi's looking for the well of water, and they're digging tiny little holes left, right, and center, whereas they just need to dig that big fucking hole and get to the abundance of water. But often people with this vast array of choices aren't digging deep enough. But this sounds like a great opportunity just to dig, and keep digging, huh?
Yeah, like being an artistic director, putting together events and that around the world, I try to make each class like a movie, like a good film. A really intriguing beginning, a great midpoint, and a happy ending. And if one through the intriguing beginning and gets into the class, by midpoint, we've won even the biggest skeptic there is. And then from there, we tie the beginning and ending together like an intriguing movie. So each class is mindfully set out, musically set out, spiritually set out, and we're all looking for that ending where people are out of their mind and they're into their heart. And we give the people the opportunity to feel something that we could consider sacred, something outside of the self, the self-contrived person. And we work hard to get that feeling at the end of every yoga class, and more often than not, we succeed with that.
So many of our people by school, by our societal training, our culture, we're taught to have a poor quality of attention. We don't know how to journey inside. We're taught to be superficial. We're taught to care about stupid things. And in the new age world, it's abundance, prosperity, and it's nauseating. And what it really is greed and gluttony. It's what about connecting to your spirit? What about living in a way that makes you happy? What do you think that just gathering one more object is going to do it for you? Because it won't. And you still have that big black hole inside. So stop it with this must have, must get, must consume more. It's stop being such a pig and
couldn't agree more.
Feeds you.
Mm-hmm. It's a thick addiction. It's the biggest addiction going around, and it's just being fed and fed and fed by our societal conditioning. So it's no wonder, if one is just watching TV as they go to sleep, when they wake up, turning on the commercial radio when they're driving to work. I mean, if we're just plugged into that societal norm, quote unquote, that addiction is just being fed again and again. And often it isn't taught to starve that kind of addiction and to pull back and to practice daily and to get in touch with this deeper connection to the heart. And that to me is sadhana, to just keep connecting to the heart, to keep coming back.
And our poor little ego is bloated and poisoned and completely out of balance. And our ego needs to be groomed and tended and brought into balance with the rest of our aspects. And it's like learning how to tend to that part of ourselves with care too.
Yeah.
Instead of some of the traditional yoga is kill the ego. It's no, you're missing the point.
Yeah, that's a futile attempt, isn't it?
Yeah. It doesn't work.
No.
And one of the contributions to yoga, Stu, for thousands of years, we've heard from Indian traditions about the ego, how bad the ego is, kill the ego. And I've come up with another terminology for not so much the ego, but the part of the lower ego which is working directly against you.
Like the one that says has another drug, have some more alcohol, go fuck this person. That part of the ego.
Well, I call it motherfucker.
Motherfucker.
So, and the students love that.
Yeah.
Then a motherfucker, they're going, oh, motherfucker's here this morning, you know.
That's great.
So motherfucker is here. So the ego has some parts that we need. So we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater because, you know, we need the ego in the morning to look good, dress well, present ourselves, be who we are, you know, achieve our dreams. So we still need, the ego still has a place while we're attaining these things. But the motherfucker, that's something else. That's the part of the mind that is working directly against you. And a lot of people put motherfucker in the driver's seat of their life. In other words, the motherfucker is the director of this body. The motherfucker is better off taking a back seat, and you put the best, your better half in the driver's seat. But what I can see from yogis is that the motherfucker is the one actually driving their life.
This mean, neurotic, vicious part of them is who's driving. Crazy.
Crazy.
Don't let your crazy part drive your life. It's like the crazy part needs healing, but it also needs to be taken out of that seat of dictatorship.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think it's tricky for people to discern whether they're just suppressing the motherfucker or just a slave to the motherfucker, which is obvious. I think often, like we were talking about people being on the edge of suicide and not even realizing it, even yogis. I think with this whole kind of new age notion to just be positive, commonly they're suppressing the motherfucker, trying to be positive, and they haven't actually healed it or freed it up. Or could you speak to that a little bit, that fine line between letting it just roar into maniac town or just the contrary of suppressing it?
Sometimes chaos needs to be recognized before it can reform in a new order. But at the same time, we're not saying allow motherfucker to have its way all the time. If that were, that's what people are actually doing. From what I can see teacher trainings, most people have motherfucker in the driver's seat,
driving them into despair.
I'm not good enough, I'm on the edge of suicide. There's no need to listen to motherfucker whatsoever.
So rule 1, disobey motherfucker.
Disobey.
I love that. I mean, I've heard lots of Zen direct practices of just don't believe your next thought. Just don't believe your next thought. But I love that even more. Just don't believe motherfucker. Just disobey.
Or sometimes chaos needs the recognition in a relationship. You know, like if some things are unsaid or whatever, things come to a head and you know, the chaos formulates and then reshapes into a new understanding in the relationship. But there's no reason to ever believe motherfucker, because motherfucker is a storyteller, but not an Aboriginal storyteller, a storyteller of negative stories. And we always say disobey motherfucker and disobey your fear. And you're not really suppressing anything of value, just suppressing a demonic part of yourself, which really needs no self-expression whatsoever.
Start, pay more attention to what your spirit and your heart's calling for instead of what motherfucker's calling for.
Right.
Your heart and your spirit never call for chocolate, cocaine, alcohol. That's not the calls of the heart and the spirit. That's motherfucker. And, you know, with this thing about suppression, it's like having an emotional pus ball. You don't keep pushing it deeper into the cell tissue. As part of what the poses and the pranayama and the music and the deep questing is like, bring these things up so they can be rinsed out of the cell tissue, and that they no longer are manipulating you from a subterranean level. So it's not about suppression, but it's also about not running down that same bloody neurological track that you habitually run down that destroys you.
Yeah.
Because if you doing that same action and you go, I'm going to choose something different, something healing, even if you don't know what it is, it's like start taking deep breaths and get active feet. Just stop whatever you're about to do, like going to pick up that bottle of beer or that cigarette or the pot or whatever it is. You just stop, take some breaths, and then ask, what's a healing action? And go that way.
Stu, the Native Americans have titled this as well, but not as motherfucker in our modern terminology. They call it the good wolf and the bad wolf. And the children ask the elder, who wins in the end, elder? The good wolf or the bad wolf? In other words, our higher self or motherfucker? And the elder responds with, whoever you fed the most during your lifetime.
Right.
So there's these wolves inside of us, and they fight. And so it's like, if you feed motherfucker gets stronger. If you feed spirit or your heart or the part of you that feels like it's most authentic, then that one gets stronger.
Yeah.
Being an ex-clairvoyant, like before I got into this, I'm an ex-clairvoyant. I don't really do it anymore, but a lot of people always wanted readings from me, and I used to say there's two paths. There's destiny and stupidity. Destiny is when we follow the true course of love and follow our highest aspirations. Stupidity is when we move in circuitous circles, making the same old mistakes and doing the same old rounds. And the future, I always used to say the future is made of the same stuff as the past until you've had enough. So we have many ways to describe this, the motherfucker.
So there's another that I heard this somewhere along my life journey, and I just really liked it, which is insanity is doing the same actions and expecting different results.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love
it's a good
like
one.
You want to do something different consistently. It's not like, okay, I had a lettuce leaf today with my Kentucky Fried Chicken, therefore I'm eating health food. It's like, no, you're not. You're eating poisonous shit. So stop eating poisonous shit. This is another one of our baselines. You know, disobey motherfucker is stop poisoning yourself, my friend, with your thinking, with your abusive actions. And then something else comes. Something else starts happening.
Yeah.
It's simple. Stop poisoning yourself.
Do you feel fasting, dietary fasting, can play an important role in that shift of having dominion over what we feed and what we just let go? Do you feel like the dietary fasting can be a good platform to explore that as well? We've just had another little connection issue. There we are, we're back.
Oh, Stu, sorry. What I was saying was in Forrest Yoga, I teach the vegan course. Is an amazing thing. A 3-day fast can reset the body, mind, and spirit 100%. Anna and I, because we're on the road, we never get a chance to do a 3-day fast. But you can do a 2-day fast, a 1-day fast, a half a fast, or just skip a meal fast. And all the fasts can work. And yes, we totally back fasting.
And fasting on. I used to fast on coffee and cigarettes.
Yeah. Right. Good point.
And as a person that flipped back and forth from bulimia and anorexia, I used it as a way of hurting myself. But I also used fasting to shrink my liver because my liver had swollen up so much from the drugs and alcohol that it was always pushing on my ribs. So the fasting helped shrink some of those poisons down. But someone who goes into fasting needs to get very honest with themselves. Like, are they doing this in a sick way?
Great
or
point.
Are they doing it in a healing way? And to be honest.
I think that's a really important point because the fasting has become a fad. And I think that it could be very subtle for the fast to be an eating disorder, which it has time and time again. So I think that's a really important point. Like, what's the focus behind it, the intention behind it?
It's like any action.
Yeah.
The intention. What is the intention? But in general, I think fasting is an amazing thing. Reset the body, mind, and spirit.
Yeah. And it seems to be a really important practice in any kind of vision questing, like prepare the body, prepare the mind, fast, and really get earnest with the vision quest you're about to go on, the journey you're about to go on. Yet in the modern day, it seems the yoga class isn't often faced with that type of preparation and reverence, but it really can be just as potent an opportunity to go deep within.
I find what works really well too is something that is called Beeler's broth, but I've altered it a little bit. Henry Beeler's an old nutritionist, long dead, but he would have people steam up like zucchini and green beans and some other green vegetables, grind it up into like a broth, like a thick broth, and eat that. And when people are so toxic and they're on their pharmaceutical drugs, on their other stuff, fasting like just on water and juice is really kind of rugged, and sometimes it's so painful it doesn't work that well. And I find, depending on what the problems are that the person's dealing with, that if they fast for cleansing, for clarity, for whatever it is, to reset internally, to do Beeler's for a few days. So they are eating, but only eating this broth.
Great idea.
And that works really too, until the poison residue, especially the drug pharmaceutical poison residue, is out. Because anybody who eats meat, they are eating all these chemicals that is given to that animal in a really horrible way. And we see this reflected in all the immune disorders and all the psychological disorders that our people have had that are way worse than they were 44 years ago when I started this yoga journey. It's like I've been watching people a very long time, and our people are getting more drugged, more fat, more panicked, more anxious, and it's like, wow. And the drugs that's in the diet is making our people more and more disordered and disconnected and freaked out. And it's like, this is very correctable.
Yeah.
Folks, you got to work smack right up against your addictions. What you're addicted to, most likely that's your poison. So cut it out.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah. Anna, I'd love to just trace back a little bit to your experiences in India. Have you guys gone back to India, or you're going later this year?
No, we actually went to the India Festival in Rishikesh.
Wonderful.
Just absolutely amazing.
So teaching there.
So
good to get back.
Teaching there. We also made our new song there.
Oh, cool.
Twin. We shot the video clip there, which I'll send to you, which is utterly amazing. Beautiful. So we took the new of Forrest Yoga to Rishikesh and absolutely blew the place down.
Wow.
Never had they seen the Aboriginal invocations, meditations. The whole package was just absolutely mind-boggling, and India had never seen a form of yoga like this before.
And
we teaching there because it's like going back to where yoga came from and giving it this beautiful infusion of our love and skill and wisdom and connection, in a way that it hasn't been.
Beautiful.
That was a very wonderful thing. And we got to teach class on the banks of the Ganga River, so watching the river. It was amazing.
There was about 700 people in the class. There was soldiers with machine guns all along the river because there were some politicians.
Right.
And I began the class by saying 40,000 years before Krishna, 40,000 years before religion, before philosophy, before yoga, there was this. And I went into a spiritual baptism song, Aboriginal song, which absolutely rocked the place. And people couldn't believe that there was already an established philosophy from our land and our people 40,000 years before yoga. Yeah. We had the whole system. We had the keys to the universe way before yoga. And here we were sharing that philosophy and incorporating it into a yoga system.
That's beautiful. Have you had any, you were saying that you don't do Oms and you don't do the Shantis and so forth. Have you had any negative reactions from the yoga community that often feel the need, like there needs to be Sanskrit, there needs to be an Om, there needs to be Shanti? How have you...
Well, being an artistic director, when I do use India influence, and I do have the best Indian artists in this country that work for me, Nirmal Jena and a whole bunch of people, Odissi dancers, Odissi singers, real people that have really been initiated, not just singers, that have been initiated in the Indian arts. Anna and I use the real thing. So one of my problems when I started in the yoga business was when I saw white middle class people doing these Indian chants and that, it was totally unbelievable.
I understand.
And when I bought in the real thing, and I bought in first at a Forrest yoga teacher training in Sydney, bringing real Indians and bringing real Odissi sacred dancing, sacred singing and all that in. And then to see what the white people on the harmoniums were doing in comparison to the real stuff was just sheer embarrassment.
Right.
And Anna had not been exposed to the real stuff. And so she point blank refused the Oms, the Shantis, and I just said, hang on a sec. You'll see in this ceremony with my Indian people, you'll see how it's done correctly, because I went to India and I was made an honorary Indian by the Government of India Bureau at the 50th anniversary of the coming of the light. The Indian government gave me sponsorship to stage a concert in Australia with Aboriginal, Torres Strait and Indian people to celebrate the coming of the light.
And it was called?
To India with Love. And
beautiful.
So, and I researched Rajasthani and all this, the real stuff. And then I came back and gave audiences the real stuff. So then when I started singing Bikram classes and Ashtanga classes and all this, white people playing a harmonium, it was highly embarrassing. Not in all cases. Cases. Like there was a couple in Sydney called Ido and Joe, and they were absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
But in a lot of cases, when you've seen the real Rajasthani or Odissi, you've seen the real stuff, and the white, middle class, one-dimensional stuff, it's like, we got a problem here. And that's why Anna and I have lent towards First Nations and professional music of other genres, because what we're creating here doesn't have to be Indian. We're in Australia. We're on Aboriginal country. So it doesn't have to be Indian. Because it's a place of healing and learning, and broken people are coming to Anna and I to be fixed the way we see fit, with the postures, with the songs, with the medicine. And so it's up to us as teachers to supply medicine that is credible and medicine that is believable.
Right on. Now, you guys talk quite a bit about singing into the bones. You touched upon that before, and you've spoken, I heard you, Anna, about the Brahmari hum. Now, the Brahmari hum, for me as well, has been one of the most powerful yogic tools. And once again, there was resistance, there was cringing. I hated using my voice in a... I would never om, even if the teacher would say om. I would never hum until this one point. I was in India, and it was a powerful Kundalini type class. It was Nada yoga, it was Kundalini. It was like a real traditional India class. And we were just humming again and again. Every asana, we would hum at least once in the asana. And that was one of the biggest peak moments of my life, just the humming. And ever since that day, I've been humming for hours a day, probably. Like whenever I can, I'll be humming. And I can't help but bring it into my classes. I'd love to hear your view on that. Such a simple technique, but so endlessly powerful. The Brahmari hum and singing into the bones.
One of the things that we teach is doing Brahmari through the chakras. Mm-hmm. And it's a powerful meditation. It's a great way to get set up for a deeper ceremony that I attach to it. But the aspects that Jose brings to it is he brings in the key of each chakra, and he plays that key so that we are then helping people learn how to tune that key, that sound in there, and using the Brahmari for that and the color. And there's also, depending on how much time we have and how deep we can go, there's planets that align with the chakras, there's attributes that align with it. Colors. And to work with that, because the chakras are not some imaginary thing inside of us. There's physical territory inside of us. When we get aligned, then it's so much easier to quest for answers for whatever your challenges are. So we use Brahmari through the chakras it's a long process. It's about a 20-minute process, instead of just a few deep breaths and then jump into your salutations. But it's a beautiful, beautiful meditation. And it's noisy. We like making noise.
Yeah.
And when people, this is another thing we learned about the resistance thing, because I want to keep coming back to that.
Yeah, please.
Learned in our advertising to say there's going to be this ceremony at the beginning and some music at the end, and so people aren't ambushed by it. A beautiful, intelligent, juicy, sweaty practice in here too, but we wouldn't put these things in like Brahmari through the chakras or the smoke blessing if we didn't think they were invaluable. So people need to trust us a tiny bit. Like I've been doing these practices for 44 years, and Jose has been doing the shamanistic indigenous world for 30 years. And before that, he was a healer. Trust us a little bit that we know what's important, and that we're bringing everything we consider precious to you.
Beautiful. Well, it is such a rarity now to have such masterful teachers teaming up to offer something so deep and multi-dimensional. I mean, there's so many things on offer now, so many workshops, and there's so many, but I have such value, such reverence for the master teachers out there, really holding strong and bringing deep power through the work beyond just mastering your handstand, which is fun, but to take it deeper and deeper like you guys are doing, I have so much respect for that. So thank you for bringing it to the world.
Yeah,
thank you so much, Stu, and we'll see you there in Perth.
Yeah, can't wait to see you guys. Can't wait to practice with you both, and much love on your journey here.
What about doing some music and dance together?
Yeah, would love to. I'm surrounded by didgeridoos and drums, so we've got a lot to choose from.
We're going to do some music and dance together.
That'd be wonderful.
I saw the frame drum back there, too.
Right
it's
there.
like,
and I've got this this crystal one that a dear friend Julian Silburn designed. It's a quartz crystal yadaki that is just incredible. You've got to have a play with it because it it is one of the most resonant didgeridoos I've played. It's very cool.
Julian will be the didgeridoo player.
Oh, I'm so glad. He's a beautiful man. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're still after a flute or keyboard or something. We'll speak to you about that off air.
Wonderful.
Can we?
So we'll see you in Perth.
We sure will. All right. Much love, much love. Thank you for listening, everyone. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Jose. All the best.
Greetings.